policy standpoint, just to your question, we're trying to make sure that the people who utilize the asset and benefit from the asset pay for the asset, right? And in our personal lives, we might not want any debt at all if we could get away with it. I mean, it's great if you could, but people generally have debt. But in our personal lives, there's a single payer and a single beneficiary. So if you could get rid of your debt, it's great. With public policy and a public asset, people are going to utilize this asset that's created over the next 37 years, actually longer probably. The reason it's 37 is the Ohio Revised Code says that the useful life of the building is 40 years. That doesn't mean we stop using it at 40, but that's the useful life as determined for financing purposes in the code. And I used to say to the school board that I worked for, if you pick the building up and shake it, everything that falls out has a 10-year life. So when you do the math, that's where the 37 years comes from. That's the computation of the average useful life of what you're paying for. But it also brings that public policy back in so that folks who are going to use it are going to pay for it. And people often ask me, well, what if we decided to pay it off over 15 years? Is that possible? The answer is yes, that's possible. That would mean that you would pay a much, much higher tax, and somebody who moves in year 16 would pay nothing. So there's a real good public policy for financing it over that 37-year period, in addition to it being the average useful life of the assets that are being bought. And the last thing I'd say is that, and Joy mentioned this, municipal bonds have what's built into them is called a call feature that allows the district, which is the issuing authority, to refinance those bonds at periodic times through the life of the issue. And that is built in, generally speaking, for schools just to take advantage of lower interest rates if they exist in the future. That's what happened in the prior issue. It was refinanced. That means the payments were lowered. That means the taxes that are levied can be lowered. We build in that call feature, which is an option for the school board to exercise. And this is the same for any municipal bonds, whether it's city, county, schools, so that 10 years from now, if rates are lower, we could refinance and lower the payments. And that's a standard feature of municipal bonds today, and we would certainly have those in these bonds as well. So I think I'm turning it back to Joy. Okay, great, thank you.
So in this example, we have two houses, and I'm going to read this line down here at the bottom. The average home value in Beavercreek City right now is approximately $330,000, and in the township, it's about $365,000. So that the top house has an appraised value of $300,000. The bond would be $172 per $100,000 of appraised value. You multiply that by 3, it's $516 per year. The house on the bottom, appraised total of $500,000. It's $172 per $100,000 of appraised value. Multiply the 172 by 5, and it's $860 per year. As Kent mentioned, you can go out on the Greene County Auditor's website right now, and you can go to their property search, and you can search by property owner's last name or the address of the property. And when you pull that up, right now it does have on there this ballot issuance and what it would cost each individual homeowner. So you are able to go in there and go look at that. So we've talked about the cost of the project itself, and I want to touch on whether or not additional operating funds will be needed. And at this time, the district does not anticipate the need for a new operating levy when this project is completed. The district is very healthy financially. We are not deficit spending, and the goal, of course, is to maintain this financial health and to avoid deficit spending going forward, even with the addition of a new building. Staffing will be based on student enrollment and specific needs, and as we make these building transitions, there may be increases in staff in some buildings, but decreases in others, again, depending on enrollment and needs. Currently, all of our students who are being taught in our trailers have teachers, so we will not need to hire more teachers for those students when they move into a brick and mortar building. And so we need to take that into account. That being said, there are currently 2 operating levies that have been voter approved and will need renewed. There's an emergency levy that was originally voter approved in 2011 that expires in December 2026 for $18.5 million. There's also a substitute emergency operating levy that was originally voter approved in 2019 that expires in December of 2028 for $11.5 million. Combined, these two levies make up an estimated 25% of the district's operating budget. So they're a very important piece for maintaining the financial health of our district. I'll turn it over to Mr. Otten now so he can talk about the OFCC.
So one of the questions that we've received, there's a organization through the state called the Ohio Facility Construction Commission. You'll hear referred to as the OFCC. Well, the OFCC started many, many years ago. It was off the tobacco money. You may remember the settlement that the states received. And what they decided to do with that money is they started funding school projects, school building projects. And the OFCC is set up that they identify the school districts in the state. There's 610 school districts in the state of Ohio, and they rank order them from 1 being the poorest to 610 being the wealthiest. So they start at that bottom, the poorest school district, and there's a sliding scale. The further you move up on those numbers, that scale changes and moves. And what it is it allows the state to become a partner with you to help fund a building project. So we started looking at some of the poorest districts with their very aged facilities, and this has allowed them to build new facilities at a very reduced cost. So Beavercreek, of that 1 to 610, we are currently 505. That is our ranking, and so we're not even close to getting our number pulled. So you may have driven by Fairborn High School, the brand new school you see out there at Fairborn. It's a beautiful school. If you have an opportunity to walk through it, I would encourage you to do that. Their OFCC works in what they do is when they move up and they choose a district or they select the next number on that list, Fairborn's number was selected. So they did a joint project with the state of Ohio. That joint project, the residents of Fairborn voted to fully fund that building. That high school building was fully funded by the residents of Fairborn. The state gave a reimbursement amount, and that reimbursement amount will be used to build their new middle school. So there will be a middle school built right next to it. Some projects, they'll say, all right, you're going to come beside us and you're going to help fund it with us. So we're only going to run a levy for a certain dollar amount, and the state's going to pay the other dollar amount of that project. As I shared earlier, Beavercreek, we're not at that opportunity to get our number pulled. However, the state OFCC does allow something called ELP. It's the Expedited Local Partnership Program. And so what it allows us to do, it allows us to take advantage of the OFCC, become a partner with the OFCC, and build our project. So we have locked in on this rate. Our dollar amount is for every dollar we spend on this project, 17 cents per dollar will be refunded to Beavercreek City Schools for the project. But when we talk about $265 million, not all of that will be refunded, because what they look at is we have to build our building, and when we renovate our middle schools to elementary schools, and we renovate the high school to a middle school, when we renovate Main Elementary to a central office, and when we build the high school, in order for you to get that 17 cents on the dollar, you have to build by their design manual. And so the design manual, it's very large, and it deals with how large are your classrooms. They have to be a minimum size. You have to put certain lighting in, certain heating and HVAC into the system, the whole gamut of pieces. But those 3 gyms that we talked about, there will be some co-funding in those gyms. But if we decide that we want to put bleachers in those gyms, which we will want to do, small bleachers for parents, that is not a co-fundable piece. If we build a theater in our high school, that is not a co-fundable piece because by the Ohio Design Manual, you don't need a theater in a high school. So those are called locally funded initiatives that we say, no, those are important for us. That's a locally funded initiative. We're going to pay for the theater. We're going to pay for the bleachers. If we decide to make a room smaller than what the design manual is, then we are assuming the total cost of that room without the reimbursement. So here's my example. At the end of this project, this is just round numbers. At the end of this project, the state looks at our project, looks at our designs, and they say 150 million of your 265 million is co-fundable or eligible for reimbursement. Then the district, when they pull 505, which might be 10 years from now, the district would receive 25.5 million back. That's just an example. The chances of it being 150, it may be 167, it may be 125. It's really how we design it. Obviously, the closer we get to that design manual, the better the reimbursement will be to the district when our number's pulled. So we are actually using state money, but the state money will be coming well after the project would be completed. So how much will the master facility plan cost? 265 million. It will last for 37 years. Again, I would encourage you to go to the auditor's webpage, put in your last name or put in your address, and you'll be able to see exactly that impact on your property. But it's 172 per 100,000 of auditor's appraised value. So to wrap up tonight, this is our final slide before we get to our QR code. Why now? We have current capacity issues that we are dealing with, and we're having major issues with that. Not only do we see it at our preschools, but we see it at 3 of our elementaries. As of next year, we will have every elementary at capacity with the exception of Parkwood, and the only reason they won't be is because we're moving preschool out. Our master facility plan, again, the lion's share of that is building a new 912 high school, converting the current high school to a middle school, our 2 middle schools to elementary schools, 3 gyms at our elementary schools that do not have that, conversion of Ferguson Hall, and then ultimately Main Elementary to our central office. Again, our timeline, the biggest date you need to know is really the 29-30 school year. That would be when everything would open. And we've already talked about the cost. So one thing I do want to share with you before we move to the next slide, this entire presentation has been recorded. It's being streamed live right now. All of our presentations have been recorded. This is our 6th one. I'm sure you don't want to go watch 1 through 5, but they're on the website as well. If there's something that was said tonight that you want to hear again, or something that you want to check, you will be able to look and find this recording online. And this presentation's up there too. So if you felt you needed to write something down that you saw, we will have this presentation on the website as well. So you'll have access to all of this. Biggest thing I can tell you is if you walk out of here tonight with questions, or in 2 weeks you have a question, what I would encourage you to do is feel free to reach out to me by email or to call me. I respond to all emails, respond to all phone calls within 24 hours. If you have a question financially, I would encourage you to reach out to Joy Kitzmiller, and all our contact information is on the website. So for this, we'll open it up to audience questions. If you do have something you would like to share with us, or if you have a question that you don't want to ask out in front of everybody, you can put your contact information in and we'll be able to reach out to you. So with that, I will open it up to questions. Yes?
Besides people not...
Do you mind
Oh,
using
sure.
the microphone?
Sure. So besides the concern about an increase in taxes, what are opponents of this? What are they expressing? What is it about this that they are not interested in?
So great question. obviously, I think you're right. The first thing you said is just the additional cost. I mean, anytime we recognize that there's a need for the school district and it requires money, which most needs do, we have to go to our voters to do that. I think one of the pieces is just one of the things that I have heard is I will hear people say, hey, when I was in school there, we seemed like we could get more people in that building. Why isn't there more? Or the high school had grades 9 through 12 at one point. And I'd say one of the things that has changed dramatically with instruction, our classrooms are designed completely different. We have a very large special education population, and those kids, the needs of those kids are great. But here's a better example. This year we opened up really a whole classroom. It's about 2 classrooms for cybersecurity. That classroom is totally set up where we have a lab with computers and we have another section where they can take computers apart. That might have been space for 2 math classes, but now it's cybersecurity. So we can't use it for anything other than cybersecurity. And that is a full course. That is being used quite a bit. But we are constantly looking at how those spaces are being used. The biggest problem we see is really at our elementary schools right now. Lot of growth at our elementary schools, a lot of pressure. The fact that we have 3 portables in the district is pretty dramatic, and knowing that those portables are there creates pressure for those schools. One of the questions that was asked is, why don't you just add another portable, or can't you add additional portables? We can add additional portables. The problem is the infrastructure of the building was never designed for that many kids. So when you look at a Trabine Elementary School, Trabine was designed for about 650 students. It's sitting at over 800 students right now. And so yes, we have a portable out there. We're using every space, as Dr. Fiore shared, that we can find. But the cafeteria was not designed for 800 kids. Our art room that we have and our music room was not designed to build a classroom schedule around that. So if you're over at Coy Middle School, you will actually see our elementary kids going to vacant rooms at Coy, because those kids have already been dismissed and we have open rooms there. So to me, the space, I would say, is the biggest thing. But I think people who aren't in the buildings really question, are you really at that, is that enrollment capacity pressure really what it is? One of the things that I always encourage people, if you ever want to come out to our buildings, if you reach out to me, I will put you in contact with the principal of any building you want to go to, and they will walk you through the building to show you what's happening in the building. So I think that's probably the biggest thing beyond the taxes, is just, do you really need this much space?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure, absolutely.
And then I'll give my microphone up. More on how Ferguson is going to be used, because I've seen all
Sure.
the other schools kind of in multiple different
Yep,
medium,
absolutely.
but that one hasn't really
Sure,
been addressed.
absolutely. Yeah, so Ferguson Hall, so what we would look at, one of the things that we do currently as a district, we work obviously we have a great relationship with Greene County Career Center. If you have seen the Greene County Career Center that's there, you see it off of 35. That building is at full capacity. I was in a meeting today with Superintendent of Greene County Career Center, and he said right now they are projected to have over 120 students on a waiting list for next year. So they're not even able to take all the students that are applying. So Greene County Career Center has a great interest in taking some of the space of Ferguson Hall. And what we love about that is we are currently transporting our students that arrive at Beavercreek High School out to the Career Center. We would continue to do that, but the space that we would have here in Beavercreek in Ferguson Hall for Greene County Career Center would be for Beavercreek students. So that transportation would not happen to that extent. Greene County Educational Service Center, which is out in Yellow Springs, they have locations where they offer alternative programming, not only in Bellbrook, but in Yellow Springs. What we like about that, again, is it would keep our kids here, and they would want to use space because their space is very limited. They've actually talked about trying to bring all those different satellites that they have in Bellbrook, Yellow Springs, into one location to do that. So those are all secondary. What would be primary for us is that we would have an interest in really creating an alternative school there for some of our students. Some of our students that struggle to get through a full day of class, some students who may need to come in for credit recovery. So the students at Maine, we would look at alternative, but those would be special ed alternatives. So we would look at both those options. But what it would do is it would allow us to have some resources there that we can better serve our kids. It would not look like a traditional setting. And my previous district that I was in, we created an alternative school, and it has expanded tremendously, and it's been a really positive thing for our kids. So Dr. Fiore and I have had a lot of conversation over the years about how can we offer needs for our kids in-house that we don't have to send our kids to different programs. So that's what Ferguson Hall will be used for. So I appreciate you asking that question. Bob?
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Question, how many students have to get provided meals by, let's say, Feed the Creek or anything in our school district?
How many kids have to be, I'm sorry, could you hear it again?
Getting meals provided through the Feed the Creek?
By Feed the Creek, that is a good question. Tyler, I don't know if you know that. Bob, I don't, well, let me
I know
ask.
I know it's about 545.
Okay. 80?
All
So
right.
in this building alone, there's 80.
All right. But my question is this school prepared to have more people if this bond issue passes? Because there's a lot of people, and they're pushing their limits on being able to stay above water right now. And I have concerns for that, but feeding them is another concern.
Sure.
But the other one that I offer out there is, this passes, are you prepared to not get those other operational levies passed when they come due? Because people don't have the bandwidth. A lot of people do not. There are
Sure.
people that do, but like I said, not everybody. And I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to support the school. I will do the levies that you have for operation. But if that happens and then the school band, I'm voting no on the operational levies, and I'm using that money to help with the Feed the Creek and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's that important.
Sure.
And if we're not keeping that into consideration, we're failing badly as
Well,
citizens of this
Bob,
community.
I appreciate your comments. So to answer your question, the operational side, those levies that we have, that is the lifeblood of the district. And so without those, the programs that we obviously, when you look at 25% of the budget on just those two, if those don't go forward, then I would say cuts would decimate the district. I mean, it would be dramatic. So I would put those as a top priority, and I've said that. Joy and I both have said that. Our Board of Education has said if this does not pass in May, we will not run this again in this capacity because we have to focus on the operating side of it. That is our priority. That is the bread and butter of what we do. So I totally agree with what you said. The part that I disagree with is we as a community have to come up with, if this does not pass, we have to come up with a plan because we cannot continue to put portables, because we're really putting money, as Tyler talked about, we're spending money on stuff that's not ours, and we're creating a bigger problem with a lack of capacity. So failure in May, in my opinion, again, I'm just the superintendent, I have 5 board members, and it's really up to our board, but I think our board feels the same way, is this plan of a high school, I don't think our community will see this plan again. It'll be something dramatically different. What that is, I don't know. When we did this the last time, we had probably about 4 options that we looked at, and we felt all of those, as Tyler said, we felt a lot of those were Band-Aids, that we would be coming back to the voters maybe in 10 to 15 years asking for something else to build to alleviate that. So But yes, the operating to us, if you ask me tonight, I got to vote on one of those. My greatest fear is that we pass the building and we can build a building to address that, but then we have to cut our programming. And I don't think anybody wants to do that. I don't think our board wants to do that. We are highly successful. Our staff is very successful with what they do. And that is always going to be paramount to how we address space. Yep. So, great question. So he asked if the land lab that we have next to the high school can be used. So I've been here 9 years. We've had probably about 3 different attorneys look at the deed for that. And the deed is very clear that that land can never be used for anything other than a lab. We're not even permitted to cut trees down in it. The only time we're allowed to walk in with a chainsaw is if a tree has fallen and it is a hazard or it is going to take out one of the bridges in there. But other than that, every tree that falls, that tree stays there. We don't even get to remove it. So that space is unusable. Yes.
Hi. First of all, I want to compliment you on a very thorough and professional presentation. So I was very impressed.
Thank you.
As the gentleman up in front of me had, I think, alluded to, at least my observation of the community is that you have certain factions. One faction is you have empty nesters, and they're asking the obvious question, okay, why should I support, certainly objective, this is a massive undertaking, a lot of money.
Sure.
So I guess that's first question. Then the second question is, you're always going to have people that are going to be non-supportive of committing that much money over that long period of time. And at least one aspect that sort of, in my mind, sticks out like a sore thumb is obviously the proposed new high school envisions massive athletic facilities. And I guess the question is, during the formative period when you had your various individuals working on committees, was that controversial that, you do reach a breaking point of, do we need a new stadium? Do we need a new soccer field? Do we need a new weight room? And yeah, I guess in our society that is important in a lot of people's minds, but still that's cost. And
Sure.
I'd be curious to know what was the background of that.
Yeah, great question. So when we started looking at this, there was, of those 60 individuals, there was a lot of conversation about that. And one of the things, before I get to that answer, one of the things that has been a concern to individuals, and we've heard this a number of times, is the location of where the high school is going to sit, the south side of Beavercreek. It's not centrally located. It's not near where the current one is. And one of the reasons we put the slide in about the history behind that location was simply it was a great deal to buy it and we could build on it. It was large enough to build a high school on. And in the board back in 2007, obviously I was not here, but the board, from what I understand, took it with the understanding that we would use that for a high school someday, or a school, at least a school. So when we got in that process, one of the pieces we talked about was, all right, we have a stadium, we have an arena, we have a gym. I don't want to call it an arena. We have a gym. We have a baseball field, a softball field, so on and so forth. But what we kept coming back to was, is our community wanting us to build a building that has none of those facilities that are going to require our kids every day at the end of the day, if you're in a sport that's outside, that you have to get in your vehicle and drive across to the old high school and use that space. And the committee, after a lot of dialogue and discussion, felt if we're going to build something, let's build it the way it should be built. And I'm guessing on this number, but I would think if we went to probably 90% of the high schools in the state, most of those facilities are on their site. They're not off-site. But one of the other things that we run into, if you talk to our athletic director will also tell you that what we have today serves us, but it doesn't serve us well. And if you go to other school districts, they're going to have more than one turfed field. We have one turfed field. They have multiple turfed fields. They have lacrosse, soccer stadiums, which gives a lot of flexibility. On those slides, we didn't cover them in verbatim, but in those slides, we currently rent out different facilities for our kids to go practice at today. And so our thought was, if we're going to do this, if we're going to build a project, we're going to build a high school, let's build something that we can move out and we can have the facilities that we need. And we've had someone say, all right, if it fails, can you just eliminate the athletic side of it and just build the high school as part of that? I don't remember what the number is, Tyler, but I felt like the athletic side of it just...
It's about 15% of the total campus is the athletic facilities.
But in terms of cost, do you remember cost? I was thinking it was 25 to 30 million possibly.
The athletic would be amenities outside of
Just the building.
traditional classroom in your building. The building is right around
225.
180,
Yeah.
180 million, 185 million would be the building. The amenities are in that 25 to 30 range.
Historically, I think Dave, historically, you did have a central football stadium, welcome stadium, and whether or not that was good or bad, but
Sure.
the largest city did have that. I'm sure that was a cost saving.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with you. So I think, that's how we ended up where we are. I will tell you, not that you want to hear this, but there was conversation about putting a swimming pool in. And that there was a lot of conversation about that, but you start looking at a swimming pool, and we've got great swimmers here in Beavercreek, and but that just wasn't we couldn't add something that we didn't feel we really needed at that point. So I know you asked a question about having if you're a empty nester. So my kids went through Beavercreek. They're all graduated. To me, and this is me speaking as Paul Otten, the resident of Beavercreek and not the superintendent, to me, yes, my kids have gone through. I don't have any more kids going through. I have no grandkids at all yet. That's all right. I'm not rushing that. But for me, one of the things, someone said this to me, and I've said it a lot, is really your high school serves as the front porch of your community for a lot of people. And what I mean by that is people from other neighboring communities come here for athletics. They come here for shows, for plays, for drum corps, for different events. And a lot of people walk away with a perception of the community based off what they have witnessed at the high school or what they've seen at your schools. My previous district was Fairfield City Schools, and Fairfield Senior High was built in 1997. It is a stunning building, which they still call it the new high school, even though it was built in 97. But we received more comments and compliments about that school. And so to me, I hope our school is a reflection of the community, that people say, the community's great, their school's awesome, what they're offering their kids is great. I want to move there because I want my kids to go through that facility. That's just me speaking as an individual, but I totally recognize what you're saying as well. So thank you. Yep.
I just wanted to make a comment like Bob was saying. There was a recent survey out that said over 50% of the working class are living paycheck to paycheck.
Sure.
But you guys keep on asking for more and more and more.
Well, here's the answer to that, and this will be our last question because we're kind of out of time. But unfortunately, public education, the money that public education receives continues to be dismantled and taken from the state. I mean, we're currently today...
The majority of my taxes go into the school system.
Oh yeah, the majority do, and that's written in how taxes are done. The best way that I can answer that is we continue to have to serve, we have requirements that come down from the state every year, new requirements, and we have to meet those requirements. This project is not about how we operate. This project is trying to find space for our community, for our kids. And so I don't disagree with you that probably the lion's share of your taxes go to schools.
So my question is, what is the chance of splitting Beavercreek schools up so we have Beavercreek schools and we have Beavercreek Township schools? Since most of the buildings being done in Beavercreek Township.
Sure. That is not something that I have any control over, nor does our board, and I wouldn't anticipate that individuals would want to split the district. Typically, what you see in the state of Ohio is districts merging to help reduce costs.
But there again, they have their own police department, we have our own police department.
Yeah, they have the township is served by the county. And so the county could serve Beavercreek City, but the city decides they have their own police department. So, but yeah, this project is solely about space. It's not about operating. It is trying to find space for our kids.
And if you think this is not going to have additional operating costs, I beg to differ.
Sure. Well, we don't anticipate any. There will be staffing changes, but we also hope that we have a new building coming on, so absolutely there'll be operating costs that are associated with it. So I don't want to make it sound like we weren't anticipating that, but we do anticipate that we'll have that.
The point is, we have to live within our means. You guys need to tighten your belt up a little bit.
I appreciate that.
How many students are in each classroom right
And
now? Tell me that.
here's what I'll share with you. When we're done, you and I can have this conversation, but I want to be cognizant of everybody else's time. And I just want to say thanks for coming out. If you have questions tonight when you leave, please reach out to me. And I do appreciate everybody coming out tonight. So thank you very much.